Welcome back. All right, so we've got 8 games. Going to run all day. Martin Luther King Day and all that. I always thought it's an odd holiday for the NHL to have all day, but, you know, it's going to be interesting, too, to see what, if they talk about the ratings at all. There is an NFL game tomorrow, and so we'll see how it does, because that's Rams-Cardinals. That could be a really good game. So that could definitely affect viewership at least a little bit, right? But anyways, we have 8 games. The first one starts at 1 o'clock Eastern. The last one starts at 10 o'clock Eastern. That's all day. So I will do my best to have other video goodness up during intermissions during these games. There will definitely be intermission times. The one game that kind of throws it off is this one here because it starts on the half hour. But other than that, yeah, I'll have time to do other video stuff on whether there's new stuff. Maybe I'll throw in a career video. You just never know. 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific is the start time between Detroit and Buffalo. This is the 4th and final meeting between these teams already, even though neither of them have reached the halfway mark of the season. So they're kind of tired of seeing each other. Detroit's 17-17-5. Buffalo's 11-20-6. Away from home, Detroit's record is not good. 4-11-3. However, Buffalo's home record also not great. 6-11-2. So pick them, right? I was actually thinking about wearing a Detroit jersey before I realized there was an epic matchup on this day, and we needed to talk about the epic matchup, and I need to wear a jersey and pick a side in the epic matchup. So for Detroit, they're 7 points behind Boston. They've played 4 more games than Boston. The Buffalo Sabres are 18 points behind Boston. They've played 2 more games than Boston. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Buffalo probably not making the playoffs. The matchups between these teams have favored Detroit each time. 4-3 in overtime on November 6th, November 27th. It was a 3-2 overtime win. And then a 4-0 win on the 15th of January for Detroit. So Buffalo trying to play for pride tomorrow. Maybe we'll see Buffalo bounce back and get the win. We'll see. Because again, Detroit on the road, it's different than Detroit at home. Then 2 hours pass, and that's when the 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific game starts between the Minnesota Wild and the Colorado Avalanche. I'm kind of leaning towards giving this one its own board, and then the other one's on 2 other boards, but that's a whole other thing. So October 30th, Colorado won this matchup 4-1, but that's the first of what's 4 meetings. Tomorrow is the second of those 4 meetings. Minnesota's 22-10-2, and measuring stick Colorado, absolutely, but Minnesota's kind of a test for Colorado as well. Away from home, Minnesota's a respectable 10-7-1. They are the number 1 wild card right now in the West. They're 3 points behind St. Louis. They're 5 points behind both Colorado and Nashville. If the cards fall their way tomorrow, Minnesota could tighten up the race quite a bit. On the Colorado side, a team that is still, I just checked, they're still the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Florida's moved up to second, though. Now, Colorado, 24-8-3 is their record. At home, they're 15-2-1. They are tied with Nashville for the lead in the Central, but they have 4 games in hand on the Preds, and they're 2 points ahead of St. Louis. So that division's pretty tight. There are 2 more meetings to come. I was going to say 3, but there's 2 more meetings to come. March 27th and April 29th. April 29th is still the official end date for the season, but we know it's probably going to go on for at least another week after that, right? So, yeah, we'll see what happens in that one. That could be the game of the day. But at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, the big one. Montreal and Arizona. That's right. I'm using this magnet to denote that this game is like Clash of the Champions. Now, right now, Arizona's the longest cup long shot. It's a lot. So if you put down like $50 on Arizona winning the Stanley Cup and they win, you could probably buy a house. I think you lose your $50 though. So Montreal's 7-24-5. Not great. This is the first meeting of the season between them and Arizona. Arizona's 8-24-4, also not great. But this is the battle for 31st in the league, right? So if Montreal wins this one in regulation, they're a full point clear of Arizona, and then they can be like, we don't suck, you suck, you're a point behind us. So away from home, Montreal's a miserable 2-14-1. Arizona at home, that's away from home, 2-14-4. At home, Arizona is a miserable 4-13-1. So not a great record for Arizona, not a great record for Montreal. Montreal's 27 points out of the playoffs, 27 points behind Boston. They've played 1 more game. Arizona's 22 points behind San Jose. They have 3 games in hand, though, on San Jose. So that's a lot closer than it may look. It's 22 points, but they have 3 games in hand. So if they win their next 25 games in a row, right? So we'll see if this is the start of a big winning streak. Probably not. So the next meeting between these teams will be the Ides of March, March 15th in Montreal. It's still scheduled for that. We'll see if that does take place. It should. But yeah, so that's the game of the day right there. So yeah, I figure use that magnet for game of the day. So battle for 31st. I expect everybody to really look forward to that part of the review tomorrow. So 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 Pacific is also the start of the Battle of California, which, all kidding aside, Battles of California tend to get pretty nasty. So this is going to be interesting too, because they get nasty even when these teams are not in the playoff race, and they both are. For the Kings, they're 20-13-5 overall. San Jose, 20-17-2. So the records are similar. Away from home, LA's 7-5-3. They're coming off of that win in Seattle. They're 3 points behind Vegas. They've gotten close to Vegas. That's where we're at. They're tied with Anaheim for points, but they have 3 games in hand on the Ducks. They're playing one of the games in hand tomorrow, as the Ducks are not playing. San Jose at home, they're 10-8-2. They are the number 2 wild card. They're 4 points behind Minnesota, who was the number 1 wild card in the West, and 3 points behind Anaheim and LA. So things are really tightening up. All 3 California teams right in next to one another, and this is the first of 4 meetings between LA and San Jose. The other 3 meetings, all within a week of each other. March 10th, March 12th, and March 17th. Be a lot of hate by that March 17th game is my guess, but that should be a fun one. Then at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, the Seattle Kraken at home against the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll get it together, I promise. November 17th, Chicago won against Seattle 4-2. So we'll see if they can continue their perfect record against Seattle. For Chicago, they're 15-18-5, and the West is kind of wide open. So even though they're not really close to a playoff spot right now, who knows what might happen. On the Seattle front, on the other hand, though, it's not great. They're 10-23-4 as their overall record. It's just been miserable. At home, they're 6-12-2. So while the away record for Chicago at 7-11-2 isn't great, it's just bad all around for Seattle. 7 points back of a playoff spot for Chicago. They have the 1 game in hand. So for them, they're cheering for a San Jose loss in regulation and a win here, which would get them within 5 points of San Jose and still with that game in hand. Whereas for Seattle, they're 18 points back of San Jose. They have 2 games in hand, but yeah, long odds right there. The third and final meeting between these teams will be on April 7th. Again, that's as scheduled currently. The rescheduling, you have to think, will probably be this week. We'll see, right? And then at 7:30 Eastern, 5:30 or 4:30 Pacific. So there's 2.5 hours between these start times. Just bizarre how this is just, it's made sure that everything's spread out. I'm guessing that 3 of these games minimum are on ESPN Plus, right? So Philadelphia is in against the Islanders. Both of these teams looking to get on a run to try to get back into the race. For Philadelphia, 13-17-7 is the record. Away from home, they're 7-9-4. They are 13 points out of the playoffs behind Boston, and they've played 2 more games. The Islanders, 11-13-6 is their record. At home, they're 5-6-3. They're 18 points behind Boston. They do have 5 games in hand. So if Boston loses some games, and if the Islanders can get on a run, it's mathematically still possible, just not probable. This is the first of 4 meetings between these teams. They'll meet again on January 18th, so it's a back-to-back there. Then they meet a week later on January 25th, I should say, and March 20th. So they're going to get to know each other, and this is where one team needs to run the table on the other. If they split the 4 games, that might be... I mean, odds are it's probably done for them anyways, but I'm just throwing that out there. It's not like a Montreal-Arizona battle for 31st kind of game. 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific start time between Nashville and St. Louis. November 11th, these teams met, and Nashville won that game 4-3 in overtime. So we'll see how it goes in this one. 24-12-3 is the record for Nashville. Away from home, they're 13-6-3. They are tied with Colorado atop the division, but they have played 4 more games. They are 2 points ahead of St. Louis. St. Louis looking to get close. St. Louis fans are going to be cheering for Minnesota tomorrow night, which is weird, but if they see Minnesota win in regulation, and if St. Louis wins in regulation, all of a sudden all 4 teams are really close at the top of that division. 22-11-5 is the overall record for St. Louis. At home, they're 15-4-2. Very good home record, but again, that 13-6-3 road record, there's no slouches either with Nashville, and they got close in that game against Boston. So again, St. Louis 2 points behind Nashville and Colorado, 3 points ahead of Minnesota. We'll see how it goes. There's 2 more meetings between these teams. March 12th and April 17th is the plan. Then at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, so 2 hours between these start times, the Pittsburgh Penguins, 22-10-5 is their record overall, in against the 23-14-2 Vegas Golden Knights, who are number 1 in the Pacific, but they're not really running away with it. And when you look at the other records in the division, you would think they should be, but they're not. So away from home, Pittsburgh are very respectable, 12-5-3. They are the number 1 wild card. They're only 2 points back of Washington, so they were very happy to see Vancouver beat them today. And they're 3 points ahead of Boston. So for Pittsburgh, they're in a pretty good spot to make the playoffs, and they can help their seeding if they get a win tomorrow night by tying themselves with Washington and staying in the hunt there. Vegas at home, they're 12-9-2. They are first in the division, but they're only 3 points ahead of both LA and Anaheim. And while Anaheim looks to be fading, LA, on the other hand, coming on pretty strong, 6 wins in their last 8. And so we'll see if Vegas can get things going against Pittsburgh. This could be, all kidding aside, if I had to pick what I think will probably be the game of the night, and this is tough, I would probably lean towards this game or this game. So either of these games, probably game of the night. March 11th will be the second and final meeting between these teams. That'll be in Pittsburgh. This could be a fun one. So there you go. Let me know your picks in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And since it's a holiday and it's a full day, I want to have some fun with the preview and get a little more in depth and talk about all this stuff. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through and just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.